Hello, I'm Larry Johnson, and this is Countercurrents. Today, I'm going to fly solo. I want to ask a simple question, one that I think is on the minds of many people, and that there's some serious debate within the, let's call it the community of pundits around the world. Will Russia defend Iran if the U.S. attacks? Simple question, but a very complex answer. So it rests upon two assumptions. And depending upon which side you take on those assumptions sort of determines what you believe. Number one, what would be the motive for a U.S. attack? Right now, the conventional wisdom is that Iran is building a nuclear weapon or on the verge of acquiring a nuclear weapon, and the Trump administration insists it must stop that nuclear weapon at all costs, which the attack by the United States and or Israel is designed to, quote, take out Iran's nuclear energy industry. There are rumors, reports that the United States and Iran may agree to negotiations. I would hope that that would be the outcome, but I am doubtful. Because when all is said and done, there is no credible evidence that Iran is on the verge of getting a nuclear weapon. In fact, it's just the opposite. The CIA and the rest of the U.S. intelligence community submitting their analysis to the Director of National Intelligence put out a report 2 weeks ago that stated very clearly Iran is not working to develop a nuclear warhead. And one of the reasons that they give is that the fatwa issued by the Ayatollah Khamenei 22 years ago, 2003, still remains intact. That from the view of Khamenei as an Islamic scholar, to build such a weapon would be to commit a sin against God or Allah. The other element that we have is in the recently signed mutual security, comprehensive mutual, or I think strategic security agreement between Moscow and Iran. There are a total of 47 articles in this, but one that's the most important is Article 10. And here's what they agreed on. Russia and Iran shall closely cooperate on arms control, disarmament, non-proliferation, and international security within the framework of relevant international treaties and international organizations to which they are parties, and regularly consult on these issues. I maintain that there's no way Russia would sign such an agreement with Iran if Iran was in the process of proliferation, i.e., building a nuclear device for use. I furthermore submit that Iran would not want to run the risk of alienating Russia by going outside of this agreement to produce a nuclear warhead or nuclear device. So the reality is, Iran's not working on a nuke. I think the nuclear threat that is being trumped up, no pun intended, by the Trump administration and by the Zionists, with Bibi Netanyahu in the lead, is a fabrication. It's to come up with a justification for what the real objective is. As is usually the case, you've got to follow the money. One of the other key agreements or key articles in this 47 article treaty that was signed in Moscow between Vladimir Putin and President Pezeshkian is the clause in Article 21, paragraph 4, which states, Russia and Iran shall actively cooperate in the development of international transport corridors passing through the territory of the Russian Federation and the Islamic Republic of Iran. In particular, the international transport corridor north-south. This interaction includes promotion of goods originating from the contracting parties to the markets of third countries, and the establishment of conditions for the development of seamless transportation through transport corridors, both in bilateral traffic and transit through its territory. In other words, Russia is looking for an alternative to the maritime route through the Dardanelles, coming out of the Black Sea, going into the Mediterranean. That narrow opening could easily be blocked by Turkey and or NATO and would require a military response by Russia. I believe that Russia prefers to avoid military response, military confrontation if it can. And so to this end, this is one of the reasons they have been promoting improved relations with Iran and entered into this agreement on the 17th of January. As a result of this agreement, this will now accelerate the development of this corridor, which will extend from the south, the port on the Arabian Sea, and also another port that's located near the mouth of the Straits of Hormuz. It travels northwest through Iran to the Caspian Sea, through territory controlled by Azerbaijan, and then it connects again in Russia with a terminus in St. Petersburg. By creating this alternate route where commerce, grains, fertilizer, anything that Russia makes and anything that Russia needs to import, which is actually not much, will be able to pass up and down this corridor. That alleviates the need for Russia to be totally dependent upon the Dardanelles, the Bosporus Strait, and the Suez Canal. As things currently stand, apart from Russia's got really three access to ocean, through the Baltic Sea, through the Pacific, and through the Black Sea. But the Black Sea is probably the most problematic and potentially dangerous and vulnerable. So by turning to Iran, they are going to create an alternate route that will essentially take the Bosporus Straits, the route through from the Black Sea to the Mediterranean. It'll take it off the table in terms of something that they need to make as a top priority militarily. It will be less important, less a need to, at present, it could be considered an existential threat. Once this alternate route is completely open and functioning, it's no longer the existential threat it once was. So this brings me back to the original question. Will Russia defend Iran if attacked by the United States? I think the primary motive for the United States is to destroy the government of Iran and install a regime that will be sympathetic, supportive of the United States and its European allies, or at least what's left of the European allies. To that end, this will be another way to encircle Russia, trap it, try to control it. I don't think most Americans realize that's the likely plan and intent of this, but I'm pretty sure the Russians understand that. And so, to that end, in the event the United States and Israel launch an attack on Russia, under the terms of the agreement that was signed on January 17th, let me draw your attention to a number of the articles. The most important one is in Article 3, Paragraph 3, where the Russia basically agrees that it will come to Iran's aid on the basis of the Charter of the Organization of the United Nations. That's Article 51. And that's in the inherent right of collective self-defense. If Iran launched a preemptive strike on its own against Israel or the United States and that resulted in war, the odds are Russia would not intervene. But in this case, if the United States and Israel attack sometime within the next month or two Iran, Russia will come to the defense of Iran. That will entail both potential attacks on the United States and Israel, retaliatory strikes. But I think Russia's taking steps prior to that in light of the warnings emanating from Donald Trump and the rest of Washington. That the first one is they are providing, in accordance with Article 4, full briefings and cooperation with intelligence. They are providing both their information and their experience in dealing with the West, particularly in light of what they've seen in Ukraine. So Iran is getting the best ISR, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance information that Russia has, as well as intercepted communications, so that they will have a very, very good idea of exactly what the U.S. plans are. And if Russia has managed to put human sources into the U.S. military and is able to monitor what's going on, that way that information will be shared as well. So you got the intelligence sharing. In addition to the intelligence sharing, you've got Russia also providing, under Article 5, Paragraph 4, that it is a military provision of military technology, such as electronic warfare capabilities, air defense systems like the S-400, possibly the S-500, as well as the intelligence necessary to operate those, along with the personnel necessary to operate those. Those are being provided as well. Russia's not waiting till something happens. Russia is taking, I believe, proactive measures in this regard. I have asked someone who I believe has access to such information, and they confirmed to me that this is, in fact, what is taking place. Lastly, there's the diplomatic effort. Russia, above all options, would prefer to secure a diplomatic solution. Now, the United States really isn't keen on a diplomatic solution because they want to destroy Iran, need to destroy Iran in order to try to tie down and weaken Russia. But Russia understands the stakes. I believe China as well. And so Russia and China together are in this, they recognize it as an existential war with the United States, with the West in general, but the United States in particular, and would prefer to settle it peacefully as opposed to taking on the cost of the war. Let's understand that from World War II, the estimate total deaths around the world were on the order of 50 million, some say 60 million. Of that number, Russia accounted, if it's a 50 million figure, for more than 50% of the deaths, at 27 million. The Chinese are estimated, there are varying estimates, of losing between 10 million and 20 million. So let's take 15 million as a middle ground. That means of the 50 million people killed in World War II, the Chinese and the Russians and the Chinese, with the Russians in the lead, suffered 42 million. In other words, 84% of all the deaths in World War II was inflicted upon those two countries. That's why those two countries, I believe, are less inclined to get embroiled in foreign wars and foreign conflicts, unlike the United States, who paid a paltry price in terms of casualties. So, getting back to the question that I asked at the outset, will Russia defend Iran if the U.S. attacks? I think the answer is yes. And I hope that that realization dawns upon Team Trump, because once they factor in the possibility that an attack on Iran will not be cost-free, that Iran will be relying upon the help of Russia to defend itself, and once they dispense with this nonsensical belief that the air defense system in Iran was completely eviscerated by the October 27th strikes, then maybe, just maybe, the intelligence, human intelligence, will take over. And the Trump team will realize that the risks of attacking Iran are too great in terms of damage that could be inflicted on the United States and on Israel. And instead, there's a safe-facing measure. Enter into talks with Russia mediating, or possibly the Saudis. Direct talks with Iran to secure what was promised in the JCPOA that Trump rejected, walked away from during his first term. The assurance that Iran is not working on a nuclear warhead. But, as I said, what's driving this conflict is not fear of nukes. It's fear of Russia, fear of China, fear of the BRICS nations creating an alternative financial system that will challenge or even potentially replace the U.S. dollar-based international reserve currency. I always believe that in these kinds of events, when trying to do this kind of analysis, I always ask the critical question, or follow this rule: follow the money. Cui bono, who's benefiting? And I don't mean who's getting a pat on the back. Whose pockets are going to be filled with cash, with gold? Who faces the potential economic losses? I think the United States, the Trump administration, Trump has come to realize that if this north-south corridor goes into effect, they will no longer need to rely upon the Suez Canal. They'll no longer need to, it will not be a critical national security issue for Russia to be able to sail unhindered through the Bosphorus Straits, through that narrow gap of water that cuts through Turkey, going from the Black Sea down to the Mediterranean. So there are some interesting items in play, and I wanted to identify these for you. I've outlined them in an article I posted at my site, sonar21.com, and it's under the title, Will Russia Help Defend Iran Against a U.S.-Israel Attack? If you want to see more information on what I've discussed, I suggest you go there. I've got links in that article that take you to other relevant pieces of information. Thank you for watching today. I hope you hit the like and subscribe button and tell your friends about it. These the personal interventions I will do going forward. I'll try to keep them shorter, a little easier to watch. You don't have to spend an hour but I'll also be having some interesting conversations, hopefully soon, with Ryan Dawson and with Alex Craner. Anyway, I'm Larry Johnson, and this is Countercurrents. Thanks for watching.